All right, guys. So Bill Maher had David Hogg on his show, and David Hogg was a survivor of a massive school shooting, and he was an advocate for gun reform, and now he's supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And so he goes on this show, and I don't think he was expecting this, but Bill Maher decided to chastise him and berate him over the issue of Israel and Gaza, and this gets very awkward very quickly, and Bill Maher can't help himself. I've never seen a more hardcore dyed-in-the-wool Zionist than Bill Maher. I mean, literally zero nuance, zero intelligence, just repeating bullshit Likud Hasbara talking points endlessly. And as you'll see here, this is not a good look for Billy Boy. This is not a good look. Let's watch.
The question of Harvard, for a while, but certainly since October 7th of last year, was that it's a place where a lot of people go to get stupid. Mm-hmm. I know there's obviously a lot of brilliant people there, but it is ideologically captured. And I mean, this week...
Harvard is very ideologically captured, whereas Bill Maher is not. And I said, Harvard's where people go to get stupid. Right, Bill, unlike your show, where you have very highfalutin conversations. It's not you just repeating your same fucking opinions that you've been repeating since the 1990s, right?
The Israelis finally got Sinwar, the head of Hamas. I know you're not at Harvard anymore, but would this be a day of mourning for people you knew there, or what do you think the reaction is of the people you know?
Would it be a day of mourning that the head of the Hamas military wing was killed? And I like how he's talking to David Hogg as if he's just like an avatar, a representative of all young people. He's like a stand-in for the youth. Bill Maher's an idiot. He's just dumb, right? You're young. You obviously are tapped into all the young people and what all the young people think. Do you guys love the head of the military wing of Hamas? Do you love the head of the military wing of Hamas? Listen to yourself, you fucking freak. What a caricatured view of what pro-Palestine protests are about and what young people were saying, right? The protests are like, hey, stop massacring innocent women and children. Stop carpet bombing hospitals and schools. And he looks at it. It seems like they love terrorism. It seems like they love terrorism. No, you love terrorism because you cheerlead Netanyahu as he does war crime after war crime. Oh my God, I hate this man. Oh, I hate him so much. This gets a lot worse, guys. Wait for it.
I think the reaction for pretty much everybody I know is thankful that he is dead, ultimately, because you're not going to hear in the news, Bill, about the people that are sane a lot of the time. That's just not how the media works. You're going to hear about the craziest people that are out there a lot of the time. But what I do know that happens on our college campuses is I'm glad this conversation is happening in the first place between these students. I'm not saying that I agree with all of them. I think October 7th was awful. But simultaneously, I think what's happening every day to Palestinian civilians is unacceptable at the same time. And it's possible to hold both those things true, right?
So he's stating, this is the bare minimum, hey, Palestinian civilians matter and they're humans, right? They shouldn't really be massacring innocent civilians, right? Can we agree on that, Bill? And I like how he has to say, October 7th was bad, as if what? There's we did a poll, 93% of college students say, yes, October 7th was based. It's sort of feeding into the stereotype he has of young people, right? I mean, I get it that David Hogg's trying to get Bill Maher off his ass. So he's like, of course. October 7th was bad, duh. But also maybe don't carpet bomb toddlers, maybe, right? Again, wait for it. Bill Maher just can't help himself. The only way you can get Bill Maher to not in agreement if you're talking about Israel is if you sound like Adolf Hitler. Right? You need to say, Ich bin von Schlagenfagen Newton. You need to be saying shit like that in order for him to go, yes.
But what are you talking about? Before the war, what was happening to Palestinians?
Before the war?
Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Their everyday life before the war?
I'm talking about the response that has happened since October 7th in particular that we've all seen.
So do you believe Israel has a right to be a state?
Absolutely. I believe in it.
Hey, man, a lot of innocent civilians are being killed. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist? Bill, do you believe Palestinians have a right to exist? Do you believe a state of Palestine has a right to exist? I love it. They act like the perpetual victimhood narrative, right? Of you don't think Israel has a right to exist. He's like, actually, yeah, I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of a two-state solution. But nobody ever flips it on Bill. Do you believe Palestine has a right to exist? Because Palestine is actually blocked in reality from existing by the Israelis. Israel exists and will continue to exist, right? But they make it seem like, the downtrodden, oppressed, state of Israel that has all the money and all the weapons and is leveling everybody around them at the moment. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So do you believe Israel has a right to be a state?
Absolutely. I believe in a two-state solution. But what I don't believe is productive, Bill, is when we continuously focus on what these students that are still trying to figure out who the hell they even are a lot of the time and talking about that instead of the people that are actually responsible for these atrocities continuing, whether that is us not having a two-state solution or our leaders that fail to meet this moment over and over and over. Because I get it, though. Like, I don't necessarily agree with everything every young person says, obviously. There's a reason I'm on the show right now. But I do agree that we need to have a conversation.
In other words, young people think you're a fucking idiot and think your show is stupid. I don't agree with all the young people who say you're an old, bigoted asshole who's in love with the smell of his own farts. That's why I'm on the show.
A lot of the time, they can say stupid things that I do not agree with. Ultimately, I'm glad that my generation knows that what the current course that we've been on of just enabling the government of Ben-Gvir, the government of Netanyahu, that was being protested by the Israeli people leading up to October 7th, just acting like
they're not against his policy of prosecuting this war to the end. Mm-hmm. So that's wrong.
Yeah, they were against his corruption. Bill's right about this point. The Israeli people are not against the war. It was only like 4% said the IDF has gone too far when they had already began a genocide and it was in full swing, right? So he's right about that. They're against Netanyahu for his corruption and for his attempt to like do a total authoritarian takeover and destroy the Israeli Supreme Court. That's what they opposed him for. They don't oppose him for the mass slaughter of Palestinians, but that's not making the point that Bill Maher thinks it's making. It's not like, and the Israeli people are correct to back Netanyahu. No, the Israeli people are complicit in backing Netanyahu in his absolute slaughterfest, genocide, ethnic cleansing campaign.
They were against certain other things he did, and as a politician, that's a whole different discussion. But as far as what he's doing now and finishing a war that he didn't start.
Finishing the war that he did. Bill, what war? What war? What war? Allow me to take a line from, I believe, an old Cat Williams special, where it's like, it's not a war if both sides don't have uniforms, right? Like, the joke goes like, bitch, tell me what an Iraqi uniform looks like. I'll wait. And you can't come up with it. Why? Because it's not a war. This is not a war. This is Israel slaughtering 90% innocent men, women, and children. That's what it is. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. Euromed Monitor, the human rights group, has laid that out. The UN numbers are very, very similar. 16,000 children dead, 10,000 women dead, about 50,000 Palestinians in total dead, 90% civilians. They did a total siege, cut off all food, fuel, water, and electricity to 2.3 million people, even though there's only 30 or 40,000 members of Hamas. Don't call it a war. It is not a war. It is a slaughter. It's Israel shooting fish in a barrel and crying victim the whole time and being the number one world cry bully.
If you concede that Israel does have a right to exist, and two-state solution you mentioned, Israel wanted a two-state solution from the beginning. They gave Gaza...
Like every other year at the UN, they vote on this exact question. Hey, should we have a Palestinian state along the 1967 borders? And every year, the overwhelming majority of the countries in the UN go, yes, and Israel and the US go, no, we're going to go ahead and veto that. The US vetoes it on behalf of Israel. So don't act, bro, they want the two-state solution. Really? Then why do they keep blocking a two-state solution along the 1967 borders? Because they're full of shit. They don't actually want a two-state solution. They've made that crystal clear. They literally just had a vote in the Knesset where it was overwhelming majority said no to a Palestinian state now and forever. He's just a fucking liar. You're just a liar, Bill. You're just a liar. You believe all the Likud Hasbara talking points, all the bullshit that they use to deflect and obfuscate and use smoke and mirrors and make you think, oh, we're victims and it's the big bad Palestinians have all the power and they got their boot on our neck. Nonsense, nonsense.
Israel wanted a two-state solution from the beginning. They gave Gaza back. It wasn't
God. I'm going to shove my earlobe in a meat grinder. They gave Gaza back, he said. What happened, Bill? What was that about in 2005? You want to talk about it? What was that about? It was, I believe, Ariel Sharon gave back Gaza, right? And the whole idea was, let's divide and conquer Palestinians. Make it so that in the West Bank, you have Fatah, the Palestinian Authority, in control. In Gaza, you have Hamas. Divide and conquer. If they're not united, there won't be a single Palestinian state. And all they did was remove the internal settlements in Gaza. What did they actually do? They moved to the border and turned it into an open-air prison. That's what they did. And the strategy was divide and conquer, right? They still control the food, the fuel, the water, the electricity. They don't let Gazans leave, right? This is what happened. It was divide and conquer, and it was turn Gaza into an open-air prison. But the PR spin was, bro, we're pulling out of Gaza and giving Palestinians their freedom, bro. That's what the PR spin was, and he's repeating it.
They weren't running it. What did they do when they had their own state? Gaza was a Palestinian state.
He just said Gaza was a Palestinian state. On what fucking planet does that count as a state and not an open-air prison? On what planet? They don't control their food, their fuel, their water, their electricity. They can't have an army. They can't do self-defense. They can't be armed. They can't have a fucking airport. Israel controls every single thing about it, and he calls that a Palestinian state. He's just a liar. He's just a fucking liar.
Israel. That's why it's a...
All right, well, good. I'm glad that that video cut out because I couldn't handle it anymore. My blood pressure was getting too high and my blood started boiling, and this guy is an absolute fucking scumbag. All this guy, David Hogg, did was show just absolute bare minimum respect and decency for Palestinian civilians as human beings, and Bill Maher flips out on him. Why? Because you got to call a spade a spade. He truly is an Islamophobe. Truly. Like, he truly believes if you are Muslim, you are inferior. Right? It's not like he always used to have this dodge of like, well, I'm just against the ideology of Islam. So if you like codify the doctrine and say, let's live by this, I'm against that. Right? And it's like, you hear that and you go, okay, fair enough. I'm against the evangelical fundamentalist Christians who are super right-wing and use their religion to like back horrible ideology. I can understand that. But understand something. It was just a dodge when Bill Maher said it. It was just a dodge. Because in reality, he's against Muslims as people. He's against Arabs as people. That's the bottom line. Because he has fully dehumanized every single man, woman, and child in Gaza. And he views them as inferior. He views them as primitive. He views them as unenlightened. And so he thinks, hey, if you're killing a civilian or you're killing a Hamas member, whatever, close enough. Same to me. That's a future Hamas member if it's a child. So fuck it. Who cares? This is how he talks. This is how he acts. And to this day, he backs every single thing Netanyahu has done. The entire exterminationist campaign where every other day I open my fucking Twitter account and I see some kid with their head blown off or somebody lying without legs lying under the rubble and there's no anesthesia to help them for the surgery to try to save their life. And by the way, saving the life won't even fucking work. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's on the side of Israel no matter what they do. Doesn't matter how aggressive they are. Doesn't matter how offensive they are. Doesn't matter how many civilians they kill. Doesn't matter how many war crimes they commit. He is 100% on their side. And that is the sloppy, tribalist bullshit thinking that Bill Maher often rips on his own show. You're the person who's tribal. You're the person who's bigoted and xenophobic. You're the person who's Islamophobic. Just call it what it is. Just be honest. You hate Muslims. You hate Arabs. Just say it. Just say it. They're all guilty enough. You agree with the Israeli politicians who have come out and made statements that are flat out, sound like they're straight out of Nazi Germany. You agree with those people. You can't get away with your little bullshit fucking garbage of it's the enlightened versus the unenlightened. It's the civilized people versus the uncivilized people. You can't hide behind that anymore. We all see through you. And this is a classic example of, again, somebody showing bare minimum human decency for Palestinians, and he flips out. Gee, I wonder why. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.